Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At-Home Dad Network. My name is Brock,
My name is Danny.
and we are here to talk about life as stay-at-home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Times I might eat too much. No worry about my weight, got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet, cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
Welcome back to another edition of Home Dad Chat. I am very excited to have my co-host and good friend Danny back tonight. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. Brock. How you been?
I've been good, man. I've been missing you. I've been missing getting to just talk and catch up on different things and just have fun conversations on the podcast.
I don't know, man. I think you got some good people in there. You know, you did pretty good with both Kyle and JHD are all like, yeah, I guess I'll just step back for a minute. I don't mind. That was cool. I loved hearing them both. That was great.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's nice to have a large pool of dads to be able to pull from for when one of us can't be there. So it was exciting to get to talk with him for sure. So It's always fun to talk poop with Kyle.
Yeah. He's a
And,
great guy in so many ways, but it was really interesting. I think the first time he mentioned that to me, and I'm like, huh. So know a lot about poop. That's cool. I don't know as much about poop as you do, Hal. You know, it's very educational.
Definitely. And talking to JHG about equality was a great conversation too. And I got actually wrapped up today into a Twitter thing with a guy out of the UK. I don't know this guy, but some guy in Parliament, he was talking, he had a mom who got up on a screen and was talking about how like they needed something for the moms for being at home with the kids the whole time. And like just completely washed over the fact that their dad's doing the exact same thing and stuff. And so this guy on Twitter was like, yeah, sorry, I can't really comment on your thing right now. I've, got to take care of my kids here at home. And I was like, oh yeah, we're jumping on this. And so from an org standpoint, I was on the national at-home dad Twitter account going back and forth with this guy and hopefully setting up JHG maybe or one of the guys from the board on a podcast episode with him, because that's what he does, is podcasts out of UK. So nice. Yeah, so just fun stuff like that, just keeping it real.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, so you've been gone for a couple of weeks. What's been going on in life?
Yeah. And I missed it. I missed talking with you too. I want to say that before I forget about it. And, I needed a little bit of time. My grandmother passed away and she got COVID, and that's kind of difficult to say even. So she passed, and she lives with her daughter and son-in-law, my aunt and uncle, and my uncle also got it and was in the hospital for several days, and he's home now and seems to be doing great. He's been through a lot, but it just kind of got overwhelming. I mean, just grief is what it is. Every person's experience of grief is different, but I think everybody can agree that if you've been through it, if you've lost someone a very close loved one especially, and my grandbetty, that's why I call her so, my grandmother was just that 100%. And but when you go through that, it really just takes time to kind of take it all in and then move forward with whatever emotions are just overwhelming you.
Definitely. So, I mean, it's a lot to process just in general, but then you stack COVID on top of it and social distancing and things you can't normally do to mourn and grieve over it. And yeah, I mean, that's a lot of heavy, pushing you down and whatnot.
I didn't feel too bad about taking a couple nights off there. I probably took off more than a couple nights, but at least a couple nights from the podcast. I didn't like it, but it definitely was just, it comes down to self-care.
Yeah.
And being able to understand the emotions, everything that's just trying to overwhelm you, and what to do with it and how to handle it. So
yeah, definitely, man. I can understand. And, sorry to hear about that and things you're going through. But I know that your wife has definitely been a support. I've been, just texting back and forth with you and stuff, keeping track of things. So that's good. What's it been like as far as, because I mean, kind of days still go on and stuff like that. And so, you got the kids and all of that. How's that kind of been working for you?
Yeah, it's been I will say I haven't done my best work in the last 2 weeks. It's been a lot of, are the kids fed? I don't care. Okay, I'm done. It's like I could have. I'm not saying that I would have fed them like chips and donuts every night or anything like that. But if that had been the only thing in the house one night in the last 2 weeks, I would have just let it go. But I think the biggest thing that was really kind of interesting. I mean, how do you talk to your kids about things like this? How do you
Right.
tell your kids? Now, for me, I feel like the best way for me and my kids is just to just be blunt with it, not brutally so, definitely tactful. But I had a good dinner. Everybody was full, everybody was happy, and I just gathered everybody around. After we'd finished eating, we cleaned the table, and we were all just sitting there. And I just told them, and because it's my grandmother, their great grandmother, and it's been over a year now since we've actually seen her. you
Yeah.
know my youngest kids didn't really even parse it. They didn't really get it. Now my 8-year-old cried, but he could tell, and he said me, he's like, Dad, you were so sad, and it made me sad. And I thought about that, because you want to give your kids your best face as much as you can. You don't want to show them, when you get angry or whatever. You want to show them a better way to do it. But and in having dealt with my mother passing away recently, a couple years ago, it seems very recent, but only 2.5 years ago now, seeing how they're affected by it really helps me understand how I want them to see me affected by it.
Yeah.
There have been a couple times that, I'm a big crier. I cry at Hallmark commercials. I'm that guy. I'm a blubber. Just, oh man, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
I'm
Right?
I'm guilty, man. I'm right
I
there with
love
you.
it. I love it. That's why I love you, man. I love you because you have that passion, that level of emotion that's right here, and it's really difficult, and you really shouldn't ever be asked not to show it.
Mhm.
I was about in denial for about a week, I would say, which is a really weird place itself. And that was fine. I could handle everything, and the kids were good, and I got everybody going. My eldest, my 14-year-old, she was pretty torn up by it. But she recovered pretty well overall. It made her more emotional for a couple of days, and a little bit almost like depressed for a couple of days.
Yeah.
But looking at how they act and how I act, I think the thing that I really wanted to is two things. One, I didn't want to ugly cry in front of my kids. All right. That's not because I don't want them to see me cry, but because it's personal. This is where I really, like, the first time, I think it was after a week later or so, and I was sitting in the van. I just got home, and I just took a big breath, and I'm sitting in the driveway, and it just started coming out, and it was just floodgates breaking. And I was just, tears and snot and just, just the worst. And wouldn't want really my kids to necessarily see me like that, because I'm not in any way able to explain it. And if I have to stop crying to explain, I'm going to stop my grief. I wouldn't mind if they saw it, but I needed to cry like that for myself, so I needed to let that out.
I think you hit a really interesting point there. You're talking about like not stopping your grief. Like I think that's some really interesting insight. Honestly, I never really thought about that. Like just the idea of like processing through it completely without like trying to put a stopper on what's going on, and just be like, can I just empty this vessel for the moment?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Instead it's like this needs to be fully emptied. If there's still something swishing around in there, like I'm going to have a real like continuance of my day. So like, let's just get it out so that we can move on. So no, that's a great point. Honestly, I've never really thought of that. So
your kids see you cry, man?
Yeah, they have.
I know they do, but I'm asking for the podcast because I know they do.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so like you're saying, you're talking about Hallmark cards and stuff. Like we watched Moana this weekend, and anything involving like cartoons like that, where you've got like grandparents or whatever that like pass on, and then like they come back in other ways, like really hits me hard. So I'm 41 now. It was like 2 years ago that I lost my first grandparent. Like, I had great grandparents that I had lost, of course, but to lose like your first grandparent at like 39, I was like, one, I felt very blessed to have them for as long as I did. But
sure,
my grandmother passed away, and that was like one of the first times like that my kids kind of saw like some sadness. I lost my uncle a little bit before that too. And so
Mm.
those kind of like coincide. They were really close together. So
Yeah.
my 39th year was a little bit rough with losing an uncle, a close uncle, and my grandmother. And so they've definitely seen me lose it in different ways. I also just confess that I am not a good processor of my grief, to the point where actually my grandmother's passing was so sudden that like I drank like almost a half a bottle of bourbon in one night, and my wife found me like puking in the bathroom and completely not in a good place. But so just so you know, everybody out there, don't grieve that way. It's not good for you.
You regret that.
Yeah, you regret that for sure. Definitely. And, on top of it too, you think about, you got your grandmother over the top of you trying to smack you across the face. Like, that was stupid.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so that's been one of the things they've seen. For me though, I think like the thing that really had gotten me was I was battling hard with anxiety, and to the point where like it had really gripped me hard. I think it was last summer, 2 summers ago, and to the point where I was outside trying to play with my kid, trying to kick a ball around like soccer ball and stuff. And my wife came outside. I think it was on actual, like on a work day or whatever. And I just sat down on this like big log we have out in our backyard, and she could tell something was wrong. And she came over, and I just lost it. And my kids came over, and they knew something was up. And it was just a chance to be really transparent and vulnerable with them.
Yes.
And it was great because it opened up a nice bit of communication. But it was tough too. I mean, you're putting a lot out there. Like one, I mean, my wife is very loving and supporting. So I knew, but it was like the kids, like, how are they going to kind of perceive it? Granted, they're young, but still. But yeah, I mean, so definitely there's been quite a few times, and I still process through things. They've seen me they've seen us cry for different reasons. So it's definitely there. I will say that I don't ever remember really seeing my dad cry too much. So it's kind of one of those things where like, I think I get most of my emotions from my mom.
Yeah.
For sure. But I think that is what it is. And I've definitely questioned my like testosterone level on that. Sometimes it's been weird. I've had some conversations with some doctors, and they're like, no, they're like, being a stay-at-home dad and this kind of thing, they're like, that's not going to affect that the way that you're thinking it is. Like, that's a mental, like, you're kind of your psyche's trying to mess with you kind of thing, but that's not the case. Like, so I was curious, because I was like, all right, me being a stay-at-home parent, did that like, somehow like boost my estrogen level some weird way or something like that? And they were just like, no, that's not how that works. So
yeah. Well, it's like when you have kids, your testosterone level drops. I mean, it's a natural response, because if you're thinking about like reptile brain, you're moving out of the need to reproduce. Oh, I reproduce now, so I can just back it off a little bit. And there's a lot more to it. And then the uptick in oxytocin, the love drug. I can't remember what it's called, but it's the one that makes you
that's
love
right
it.
one.
Oxytocin. Okay.
Oxytocin.
Yeah. And how that rises. And it's amazing to me that my kids, while they don't have like the chemical hormone levels yet that they will when they're adults and what have you. Maybe my teenager does. She's a little crazy, but
I was going to say your 14-year-old, she's got to be,
she's a little bit, she's good though. She's really good about it. But looking at how they responded to me and respond to me when I'm crying, you said the thing that I really, really appreciated that you said is about being vulnerable to your kids. I mean, your kids are young still, and they're probably still in the stage where you're Superman. I mean, you are 10 feet tall and bulletproof, right? I mean, you're just like, oh, welcome to the gun show, and all this, and that's who you are to them. And
this is the pea shooter,
sure,
man.
do
it, man. Looks like gun show.
Did a mosquito bite you, man? You're a little swollen right there. Just
anyway.
But but looking at how they see us, and then realizing that we cry too. I think it's just probably the greatest lesson that I never really was taught growing up. It was more of, okay, I'm an emotional person. I'm just going to cry. You're just going to have to, nobody's going to stop me if I want to cry. Nobody's going to stop me if I want to be happy. Nobody's going to stop me, honestly, if I get angry. It's all going to have to come from, internal structure. And giving them that insight into your vulnerability, to me, really shows them what it's going to be like when they hit that point, when they're vulnerable, when they're scared, or when they're, whatever else, where they feel like they're not 100%. They don't, they feel either, even if it's just being sick or being weak or whatever, having the understanding of, okay, these are solid emotions that I have and I need to process them. I need to do something with them. I tell myself every time, I should say every time, it's only happened twice, but when someone has passed, I've always said, okay, I need a certain amount of time for grief.
Mm-hmm.
And I set that time, and I can change that time. So it's not like I'm set in it, but I give myself that time to cry. I give myself that time to be in denial. I give myself those moments where I can just blubber and let it all out. And like you said, empty that vessel out completely. And kids need that understanding. We need to teach them about their emotions and how to express them, or they'll just try to figure it out on their own, or somebody on the street will talk to them about it and be like, oh, no, but just don't cry while you're crying. Crying because I'm sad. It's what I do.
Yeah.
And you're just going to have to live with it. If it makes you upset, I'm sorry, and make sure they have those tools in their toolbox.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember back to when I was 16 and lost my best friend in a car accident. And that took me down a really dark path. I didn't have the tools that I have now. And so I'm really thankful that I was able to at least have some friends around. Like, because for me, like, I was really in this place of like, I don't know where I'm going to go from here. And I don't know if I can even function with the fact that he's not around anymore. And like, I went very suicidal. And it was scary, and definitely a couple of, deep, dark attempts were put into play. And, just, it was very much, there were people in place to like keep me from ending my life. But at the same time, like, it was one of those things that I learned where like, you can't be silent about it. And you do have to have like the time for grief. But at the same time, you also need to know that just because somebody in your life is gone, like, that's not the end of your life. Like, and that, you've got to find a way to continue to move forward and find the positivity to also continue moving forward with them not being there. And that's those were some big keys for me that helped to walk out a very just rough patch in my life. And I mean, the depression that I've gone through over the years, like especially during like November, December months, which is when everybody's getting together and having family, are some of my like worst months of the year. And I actually, for the first time this year, sat down with my primary doctor and talked to them, and was able to have a conversation about possibly getting on meds and what that would look like, and how I just need something, because I feel like I keep dealing with it more and more on a regular basis. And some of the things I put in place aren't working, and so, but I mean, it's that whole idea of not thinking that you can do it on your own, or that you've got to be some strong, I don't know what the word is exactly, but there's this fake facade to put on of like, I'm okay, everything's good. But like, when nobody's around, like, I'm a complete and total mess. Kind of thing. And I just don't want that. And I don't want that for anybody. And so I feel like that's one of the reasons why I'm so just like outspoken about, hey, don't be silent. Silence is the killer, man, when it comes to depression and anxiety and all those things. So yeah, I mean, I'm getting ready to start on the new journey with that. So, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think it's important to, be able to show emotion to your kids, and to be able to talk to them about, what they're going through too. I think sometimes kids, young kids, like, my son's 7, and I know there are times where he just can't process fully what's going on. I don't know, maybe like with your 14 and 11-year-old, the kind of things that you've gone through with them over the past years, and what that's been like for you.
My teenager is not really the typical teenage problem child. She's been a problem a time or two, but we have a really good relationship. We talk a lot, and there's really no subject. And I think the biggest thing with her is that, one, she trusts that I love her.
Right.
And I've told her a million times.
But when you mean problem child, though, like, you're not talking like she's causing trouble. I'm talking like I would
Just a couple times.
Well, I mean, there's always that, but I mean more along the lines of, like, kids at that age going into their teens, like, there's some emotional changes that take place, or things like that. Like, what has that been like for you to be able to talk to them about? Because I mean, you got a preteen and then you got a teenager, so I mean, they're obviously going through some changes.
It's been very interesting, the biological changes or whatever, to going into adolescence and puberty and all of that stuff.
Right.
Overall, I've been very upfront, as I've said, even tonight I've said I'm always just very upfront about things, because I don't see any reason to really, even more than just be tactful about things. So I kind of tried to give them, and of course I got my wife in on a big part of it with Alex, because she's a girl and I'm not, and I was like, I can give you, I've read books, but I really don't know.
Right.
But the emotional side of it has been pretty good. I will say, with my teenager, she's processed everything well, but she does it intellectually. She's not very she's an emotional person. She laughs a lot and all that, but when she has a problem, she analyzes it. And I think you're familiar with that from, I don't know, somebody in your life.
Yeah.
Maybe your wife. I don't know. But that analyzing thing is what she does. And so when she's running into a problem, she just looks at it as, well, here's the theory of the emotion that we're experiencing right now is this. How would we put it out? She has gotten I feel, a bad habit of just dead facing things. Just like taking all emotion out of her face, all emotion out of herself. She sits and she listens. And then when it's all done, she's just like, okay, yes, sir, or no, sir, or whatever. If it's something that she's done wrong, she just dead faces it and has no emotional reaction. And that's one way of dealing with it, I guess. It's definitely not the way she learned that from me. But because I'm just like all over my face with my emotion. But they've been really good. Now, my preteen so far, he is not even, like, chronologically, he's a preteen, but he's still just a kid.
Yeah.
He's not even cresting yet. I mean, I'm just, I'm waiting. I'm trying to push him. I'm like, come on, man, let's get this stuff going. We gotta get into it. We're in middle school already. But he's been really good. Although he is again, every kid's different, but he is an incredible well of emotions. He has just, I mean, he'll cry. But he cries quietly most of the time. He'll go back into his room. He's introverted about it, and he'll cry. When he's angry, he gets angry for, just, it takes an hour for him to get there, and then he explodes, and then he goes in his room and cries about having gotten angry, So his emotions are a little bit different, and of course, tailoring, what I've taught him about that. But I think for the most part, what I see in both of them is that they realize that it's okay to have emotions.
Yeah.
It's okay to be scared or angry or sad or grieve or, to be vulnerable. And I feel like, at least in some parts, that's a win, good job on that one. So,
like, you're kind of taken a lot of those experiences, it seems like, and you've brought them into the dad world, as far as like being able to talk to other dads. You've got, because I mean, there's the private group of dads that, I'm not going to go through what that group name is, just because, like, it's a private group, but
secret spy group.
But still, though, like, there's something to be said about the fact that you're taking your experiences and using it to open up a door for other dads to feel comfortable to come into and have conversations. What's that Monday morning meeting been like, as far as, like, that's a super vulnerable time for a lot of dads. And, I know some of those guys in that group, and in others I don't, but I know a lot of them seem to want to share what's going on in their lives.
First, as far as just to kind of clarify for anybody that doesn't actually know about it, I think it's okay, and you can edit this out later if you don't like it, but it's basically dads dealing with mental health. and it's a secret group or a closed group, so you can't find it by looking for it or anything like that. You have to be invited in.
Yeah.
And the reason for that, and it revolves around the call as well, is it gives you a place where you can talk about stuff that no one else is going to see. I've been working very hard over the last 2 or 3 years to be able to tell my story of the abuse that I went through and how I dealt with it, my PTSD, and all the things that I've had. And having that ability to talk about it is huge. So I want to say first, that's not my group at all. That's been there for much, much longer than me, and some much better dads.
Yeah,
than
I
put
didn't
it
want to
together,
insinuate that it was your group.
Well, I just want to clarify.
Yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine.
I do host a weekly call through that group, and again, that group is kind of what happens there stays there. So I won't go into any specifics. I want to make sure I say that just so everybody in that call is like, whoa, 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 Danny's a big mouth, and I am, but I'm definitely not going to talk about anything about what we talk about.
Right.
But as an, just as an example, I think you said it just a moment ago, but if you're talking to someone that makes you feel that it's okay to talk about something, then you'll be open to talking about it. It's a very simple way, of course. But when you're looking at things with mental health, especially with our emotional health, with just the isolation and depression that I think really 90% of at-home dads and probably at-home moms, I haven't spoken to you, but I'm assuming run into that time of, wow, I don't have any friends anymore. I don't have anybody to talk to. I don't know what I'm doing with my kid. And now I've got anxiety. Why do I have anxiety? What is this? And I don't even, and a lot of times too, since there's been a stigma about it, there's been a lot of, oh, he's going to see a therapist, kind of thing. And that's, 2 generations ago, really. And now it's like, oh man, you would imagine what my therapist said to me this week, or whatever. And you really have a lot more openness about it. And what we have a weekly support call basically for that is to get together and talk about the bigger issues. Now, a lot of times we're just talking. We're revolving it around things that we've experienced or, things that we've gone through. But sometimes it's just, wow, man, I really wish I could get my kid potty trained. What are we going to do? So it's not all about mental health at this point, or mental wellness, and maybe how we put it, but it's a place where you can talk about it without somebody making fun of you or questioning you. Are you sure that happened or anything like that?
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I found it, they opened the closed group. They started the closed group based on the breakout sessions we have at the annual At-Home Dad Convention, National At-Home Dad Convention. So Home Dad Con has a mental health support group, basically. And it's, you go in the room, doors are closed, nobody goes in, nobody goes out once we start, kind of thing. Maybe it's not that bad, but nobody talks about anything that they hear about in that room to other people.
Yeah.
You tell your story, but you don't get to tell, and you don't tell anybody else's. And both that group, that Facebook page group, and the support call kind of run around that theme of, okay, you have emotions. That's fine. Let's talk about them. Let's see what they're doing to you. Let me, none of us are medical professionals, so we're definitely not going to help you or whatever, but let me tell my story too. And maybe that'll help you. Maybe it won't, kind of thing. Having that to bounce back on. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that like what you're saying, that's the key. Like that's the important piece, like to have a community of people that you can feel safe talking to about these things. Like they're not going to judge you. They're going to listen to you and let you, get it off of your chest. And at the same time, be supportive, maybe not be enabling, but be supportive of what's going on. And I think that that's really key. And so I think that's the one thing I hope people take out of this conversation is the fact that, they see that if they don't have that, and they've been trying to figure out how to get to that next level to be able to process through maybe some things that it's just a secular thing where it's like, I keep going through the same thing over and over again. It's like, what do I need? What do I got to do? And it's like, maybe you just got to be vulnerable and like allow somebody or a group of somebody's into what's going on and just have a safe place to share it and and have that support that you need. So that's what I take out of this conversation, is just the fact of just the importance of having a community of people, whether it be guys or girls, however you want to go about it. But I think for dads, like having other dads that can share together is always a positive.
Find your peer group.
Definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, man. It's a heavy conversation, but I felt like it was something that just kind of fits right in, especially with everything that's going on in the world today. Like, people are feeling isolated and in quarantine and all that kind of stuff, and just trying to be safe. But don't be so quarantined that you shut off communication with other people. There's multiple. That's the nice part. We live in a world where communication is so easy these days with all the different pieces of technology out there, and you really got to take advantage of them.
Absolutely.
Cool, man. Well, Danny, thanks for sharing what's been going on, and hopefully folks that are listening find it useful, and we'll come back to you next week with some more conversations.
Great.
I'm a dad, that's what I do.